By now, because you've read this, you've already met your feet. And you're probably curious about how to recognize a good minimal shoe. As in many things with life, baby steps and slowly does it are really, really good pieces of advice when you're transitioning to a more minimal shoe. I'm going to show you a couple of different shoes here. They're both mine, as you can tell by the size. Roland's shoes are way bigger. And they both look like they're flat shoes, and they're both quote-unquote minimal shoes, but in the shoe world, some shoes are more minimal than others. So this is one of my favorite shoes, but as you can tell, it's not really super flexible. And if you look inside, there is a nice little cork insole. Now, this is a shoe that would qualify as a minimal shoe, but it's more in the transition category because, as you can tell from the insole, the front and the back are not the same thickness. The back is a little bit more elevated. Technically, a minimal shoe is a shoe that has zero drop, which means that in the back, that shoe isn't higher or more raised than in the front. So that is your minimal sole. So this shoe, even though it kind of qualifies as a minimal shoe, it's more minimalish than minimal. Now, if you look at its little friend here, which is from another company, you can see that the thickness in the front and in the back is the same. So it has zero drop. This is a minimal sole. The front and the back are exactly the same. Now, this is the closest to how you would be if you just got out of bed in the morning. You step on the floor, and the front of the foot and the back of the foot are, you guessed it, you don't wake up with a heel, equal distance from the floor. So this is what a minimal shoe provides, is it provides that minimal distance between you and the floor, where the front of the foot and the back of the foot are the same distance, so that the back isn't elevated. Opposite to this, a high heel shoe, or a raised heel shoe, or a positive heel shoe, whatever kind of terminology you're comfortable with, is going to elevate the heel above the toes, thus changing the mechanics of how you walk and how you load the foot. So a minimalish shoe is great for transitioning. If you were just wearing something that was more raised in the back, then a transition shoe is really important because it's this kind of halfway between where you are now and where you want to be. Another minimalish kind of shoe is the shoe that I'm showing here. This is Roland's shoe, which I think is about a 3 millimeter in the back difference from the front. So a lot of shoes will actually tell you how raised they are in the back. 3 millimeters is kind of nothing. A lot of shoes that are traditionally worn as athletic shoes are really way more raised up in the back. You can get 10, 12, 15 millimeter raise. So this is really a great transition, minimalish, almost minimal kind of shoe. So how do you recognize a good minimal shoe? A good minimal shoe has zero drop, so that's the first feature. A second feature is that it is flexible, that it bends. And that it bends not where the manufacturer made it to bend, but that it bends where your foot bends. So when you're buying a minimal shoe, you can stand next to that new shoe that you want to buy barefoot, and you can bend your foot and see how it bends at the ball of the foot. You want your shoe to bend there as well. Oftentimes, soles that are more built up will not bend here. They won't bend where the foot bends, they'll bend behind it. And you want to make sure that it bends where it bends so that you can push off when you walk, right? That's why we have toes. So that's a very important piece. Another very important piece is that your toes, your forefoot, can fully touch the ground. Your toes or your forefoot cannot fully touch the ground if the front of the shoe has this big toe spring. Now, depending on how flexible the sole is, you might see a toe spring when you're looking at your shoe without wearing it, but once you're in it, your toes can actually touch the ground. This is the case with this shoe. However, there's a lot of shoes that don't have this ability to bend back down towards the ground. And then guess what? You are walking around without your toes, without the most important part of the push off of your foot. Your toes aren't really touching the ground. So you want to make sure that you don't have this toe spring that doesn't relax back into the ground. That's super important. Another feature that you want to look for is that you have a wide toe box. The toe box is that part of the shoe where the toes fit. Ideally, if you measure with a ruler or with something else, you can use anything to measure really the width of your toes from where your big toe starts to where the pinky is across the ball of the foot. You want to make sure that this is as wide or wider than that space. Unfortunately, at least 80% of the shoes on the market are narrower than this, which means that your toes will be scrunched inside, and this will contribute to poor mechanics when you walk. So you want to make sure that you have a wide enough toe box. And a lot of shoes now are made with a wide enough toe box, which is awesome. I love all of these shoes. A really good example of a wide enough toe box are these shoes that Roland owns. I just stole them from the shoe cabinet to show you. Look at how awesome they are. They're actually really wide enough. And if you look at the bottom, see how wide these guys are? How cool is that? Now, another important thing about your minimal shoe is that it is attached to your foot. Oftentimes, things like sandals are technically minimal. However, if this is just a flip-flop and there's nothing to attach to the ankle and the top of the foot, your toes have to scrunch inside the shoe. And you don't want to be scrunching inside your shoe because now your toes are busy keeping the shoe on your foot and you can't use your toes as a part of your natural propulsion mechanism. So you want to make sure that your sandals, even though they look minimal, they're wide enough, they are flexible enough, they also attach to your foot. And I think this is about it. Roland, can you think of anything that I'm missing?
No, I think the biggest thing is when you are trying on shoes, make sure to look at, don't just judge the shoe outside of your foot or with your foot outside of the shoe, but put those shoes on and make sure you can wiggle your toes, make sure you can step up onto your toes, and make sure that you can feel comfortable back on your heels like you would when you're standing normally.
Love it. Isn't it great to have someone behind the camera who can fill in when you're like, oh, is that everything? And one last thing, boots are a big deal, especially if you don't live in California like we do. You need some boots. And just know, don't despair, don't give up. There are both rain boots and regular boots now that have zero drop. And when you're buying boots, there's one extra thing. Because you will be wearing those boots when it's cold outside and you need socks, when you're trying them on, bring your nice thick socks that you normally wear those boots in, because you need to make space for those as well when you buy. And that's it. Thank you so much. I think that that was everything. And if you have any questions, head over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/eatwellmovewellonline, and ask us any minimal footwear questions you might have. Thank you.